Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's tutorial, I'll be teaching how to integrate Firebase Authentication in React Native Expo. And by the end of this tutorial, you know React navigation for routing between screens and also Firebase Authentication. I'll also dive in further to teach you the .env. So basically, .env is an npm package that automatically loads environment variables from .env files into the process. So basically, when you have configuration files that belong to you or some kind of API of which you don't want anyone to have access to it, that's where the usefulness of .env is. So if you found this tutorial to be useful and interesting, consider subscribing by hitting the bell icon and share as well. So with that said, let's jump right in. So when we check the package.json file, we can see I've already installed some dependencies, and that's the React navigation and also .env and Expo constant and Firebase as well. I've also installed the React native elements and vector icons. So go ahead and install that one and get back to it. So let's move on to the Firebase and add a project. So we need to add a project. So let's start with the name for our project. So I'm going to name it as React Native Authentication and hit on the button. So in here, you need to disable the analytics. I'll be using that and proceed. So it will start creating our project for us. You can see our project is ready. There you go. So let's click on that web and register the app. So I'm going to give it the same name, React Native Authentication, and register the app. There we go. We can see our configuration files. This file is unique to everyone. So if you are following, you have a different configuration file. So let's head towards the authentication. So let's get started with the authentication. So under the authentication, we need to click on the email and password and enable that, since we'll be using that, and save the changes. There we go. When you check that you have no users right now. So let's click on the project settings icon and move ahead and copy the configuration files. So after copying the configuration files, let's get back to the code and create a new folder in here and name it as config. Within that config, let's create a Firebase file and let's put the code in here. Let's save the changes. We need to secure our Firebase settings using the environment variable, since our essential keys will be exposed whenever you make a commit to the GitHub. So let's proceed by creating .env file within the root of the project. So within the .env file, I'll be creating a variable in here and assign the value to it. So the first one is going to be Firebase API key. So I'll copy the value and assign it to it. The next one is the Firebase auth domain. So I'll do that. Click in here. We also need to make some additional settings in Expo. So let's rename the app.json to app.config.js. That way we can access the variable process. And also within that file, let's export the JSON object inside the file by adding the export default at the start of it. And also let's import the .env/config at the beginning of the file. Let's proceed by adding an extra section to map our environment variables with constant accessible in the code. So I'll paste that in here. So within the Firebase file, let's import the constant from Expo constant. We also need to access the API key using the constant.manifest. Then we move into our extra session to access the Firebase API key. So I'll do that for each of the following quick in here. Let's proceed by creating a folder and name it as screens. So within the screen folder, let's create a file and name it as sign-in screen. Let's also create another file and name it as sign-up screen. And finally the home screen.js. So within the sign-in screen, let's import React and useState from React. Let's also import the style sheet, the view, the text, the image, the touchable opacity from React Native. Let's also import the icons from the React Native vector icons. Let's create our sign-in function, and that's going to be an arrow function. So within that, let's return a view. Let's start a view by giving it stars.container. It will style it later. So within that view, we'll be having another view with an input which is a self-closing component. The input is going to have a placeholder of email, a value of email. So let's create a state for that, and that's going to be email, set email, and assign useState with an empty string as an initial value. We also have on-chain text. That is in the text the user is entering, and use the set email function to update the text the user is entering. We also have the left icon prop, which is going to render an icon with the name of envelope and also a size of 16. Let's start our input by setting the margin top to 10. So let's copy that and paste, and that's going to be for the password. So let's create a state for that, and that's going to be password, set password, and assign a useState with an empty string as an initial value. So in here we need to change the placeholder to password, the value for the to password, and the function to set password. You also need to change the icon as well to key. Below the view is going to be an image component with the source from the assets folder, and the name is logo.png. Let's style the image by giving it a width and height of 150 and align self to be at the center. And also let's proceed to start our container using the style sheet. So in here we take the container and set the flex to 1, give it a background of white, and align item to be at the center, and justify content to be at the center, and also give it a bottom of 50. Let's export it as a default function as well. Below the input is a button, and the button is going to have a title of sign in. So let's style it by giving it a margin top of 10. That way it will push it from the top. And also below the button will be a text that will tell the user to sign up if the person hasn't signed in. So below that we are going to return a touchable opacity. It's more or less like a button. So within that we'll be having a text that will prompt the user to sign up in case he or she hasn't signed in already. So let's start the test by giving it a margin top of 5 and also a font size of 17. And also let's start the sign up here test as well. Let's start the touchable opacity as well. Let's set the color to blue and also give it a margin left of 10. I think that's pretty much it. Don't forget to import the input and button from React Native Elements as well. We need to do so. That's pretty much it. So let's copy the code within the sign in and paste it within the sign up. And we need to change a couple of things in here. We need to change the sign in to sign up screen. And also we need to copy one more input and paste. That will be for confirmation of password. So we need to change the placeholder to confirm password. And we need to create a state for that. And that's going to be confirm password and set confirm password and assign use state of an empty string as an initial value. So in here the value is going to be confirm password and the function is going to set confirm password. So in here we need to create one more state that will handle our validation message. So the state is going to be validation message and set validation message. So we create a variable in here and that's validate and set. So it's going to be an arrow function. It's going to receive some parameters that's going to take in the value to compare, and also the function that set the value. So within that function, we take the value. If the value is not equal to the value to compare, we set the validation message to password will not match. Otherwise, we set it to an empty string and proceed to set the value to the value. That's pretty much what the function is going to do. So we copy that validate and set. So on the on-chain test, we change everything. It takes in the value and validate and set. So we pass in a value and also our confirm password. That will be the value to confirm, and the function set password to set the value. You do the same thing for the confirm password. So in here to take the password to compare with the value and set confirm password at the function that will set the value. I think that's pretty much it. There we go. The style sheet from React Native, the test and the view as well. So let's create the home screen function. So export default function, that's going to be home screen. So within that we are going to return a view. The view is going to also return the test component, which will welcome. This is the home screen for the meantime. So let's start the home screen by setting the flex to 1. And also let's set the background color to white and align items to be at the center. Justify content to be at the center as well. So let's create a folder and name it as hook. So within that, let's create a custom hook, and that's useAuthentication.js. So within that useAuthentication.js, we need to import the use state and also the use effect from React. We also need to import the get auth and also on auth state change. So by calling on auth state change, we subscribe to the event that triggers every time the authorization state changes, such as when the user logs in or logs out of the application. So let's create our function. So let's initialize our get auth by setting it to a variable auth. So let's create a function, and the function is going to be useAuthentication. And within that function, we create a state. So the current state is going to be user, and the function is going to be set user, and assign use state of an empty string as an initial value. So in here we need to call out use effect, which has a callback function and also a dependency array. So within the use effect, we create a variable known as unsubscribe, and we call upon our unauth state change, which takes in the authentication, and also we have our user as a parameter here. So we want to make some condition here. If the user exits, then we are going to set the user to the user. Otherwise, we are going to set the user to undefined, and later on return the unsubscribe. So within the function of useAuthentication, we need to return the user if indeed we get the user back. So that's basically what the useAuthentication does. So let's create a folder and name it as navigation. Within that, let's create a file and name it as authstack.js. And also let's create another file and name it as userstack.js, and also index.js. So within the authentication stack, we need to import the navigation container from @React Navigation /native. We also need to import the create stack navigator from @React Navigation /stack. We need to import the sign-in screen from the screen folder, and also the sign up screen as well. So let's create our stack by initializing it from the and assign create stack navigator as a function to it. So we need to create our function, the authstack function, and that's basically going to return the navigation container. So within the navigation container, we'll be having a stack.navigator. Within that, we have a stack.screen. That is the name, and the name is going to be sign-in, and the component is going to be sign-in screen. So let's copy that and do same for the sign up screen. That's going to take the name of the sign up and also the component to be sign up. So within the user stack, we'll be importing the navigation container from React Navigation, and also the create stack navigator from React Navigation /stack. So we initialize our stack and also import our home screen as well. So we need to create the user stack function as well. So within that, we are going to return the navigation container, and within the navigation container, we're returning the stack.navigator, and that's going to handle our screen. Within that, we're going to have stack.screen, and that's going to take the name of our home screen, and also the component is going to be home screen as well. So within our index.js, let's import the useAuthentication, our custom hook we just created, and also let's import the user stack from the navigation folder, and also the authentication stack from the navigation folder as well. So let's create a function that's going to be root navigation. So in here, you need to pull out our user from the useAuthentication hook, and we want to return the user. So if the user exits, we are going to show him the home screen. So we are going to render the user stack. Otherwise, we'll be showing the authentication stack that will allow the user to log in. So we'll be showing two different screens based on the status of the user. So let's visit the sign-in screen. So within the sign-in screen, let's import our get auth and also the sign-in with email and password from Firebase. Also, let's initialize our auth. So in here, we need to create a function that's going to be a synchronous function, and the function is going to be login. So if the email is not equal to null, or the password is not equal to null, then we are going to set the validation message to required field missing. So we need to create a state for that. So let's create a state for that, and that's going to be validation message, and set validation message, and assign a use state of an empty string as an initial value. So in here, we're using try and catch. So within the try, we await and sign it with email and password, and passing our auth and also our email and password. If it happens in any error, we set the validation message to error.message. So we come to the button which has on press prop. Then we pass in our login function. That's pretty much it. So above the button will be a test that will return a validation message in case we have any error in signing up. So it's going to have a margin top of 10 and also a color of red. So let's visit our sign up screen and do the same thing. So in here we need to create a function. It's going to be an asynchronous function, and the function name is going to be create account. So within that, we check if the email is not equal to null. If the email is equal to null or password is equal to null, then we are going to set the validation message to required field missing. Otherwise, we set to an empty string and try creating the user with email and password. So in here, we need to bring in our auth before passing in the email and password. If any error happens, we set the validation message to be error.message. So we need to import our create user with email and password and also the get auth, and initialize that by assigning the get auth to a variable auth. So we visit our button and give it an unpressed value, and that's going to call our create account function. So it will also be having a test as well, and that's going to receive, and that's going to be the validation message. So we give it a style by giving a margin top of 10 and also a color of red. So when we visit our app.js, we get rid of everything and import our config/Firebase. We also need to import the root navigation. So we create our app function. That's the highest level. So within that, we need to return our root navigation component. That's pretty much what should be found within the app.js. So we need to destructure the signing function and pull out our navigation. So the touchable opacity will be having an unpressed, and that's going to be navigation.navigate to our sign up screen. So if the user is not having an account, we also need to destructure the sign up screen and pass in the navigation. So after creating the user with email and password, we need to navigate to the sign in screen. And also, if the user is already having an account, we also need to navigate to the sign in screen as well. So within the home screen, below the text will be a button, and the button is going to have a title of sign out. So this is the home screen after the authentication is done. So it's going to have an unpressed value. That's going to call our auth, the sign out function, and pass in our auth. So in here we need to import the sign out and also the auth from the Firebase. So we need to pull out the get authentication and also the sign out from Firebase/auth. And also we need to create a variable auth and assign the get auth as a function to it. So in here we need to pull our user from the useAuthentication hook. So we need to import that. So within the test, we get rid of that and welcome our user if there was a successful signing in. So we welcome it user.email. Let's check it out. So let's try to sign up our user. So I'll sign up in here. code@gmail.com. So you can see when I'll try to sign up, password did not match, the error is gone. So let's try to sign up. There we go. Welcome. code@gmail. So we have signed out. So let's try to sign in. You can see require field missing. So we need to input our value. Let's try to sign in if indeed we've really signed up. So let's pull out our password. let's sign in. There we go. So let's try to check our users. You can see we have one already. And that's pretty much it. If you find this to be useful, subscribe.